Welcome to another episode of the Africa EV Show, where we explore the bold new ideas shaping the future of mobility and energy in the global south. Today, we are zooming in on Kenya's ride-hailing sector, not through the usual suspects like Uber and Bolt, but through the lens of a new tech startup betting big on one thing: electric two-wheelers, most of which are powered by Chinese EV tech. Now, in a market dominated by legacy players headquartered in Western capitals and expensive to maintain internal combustion engines, this startup is taking a radically different approach. They are leveraging the flood of affordable e-bikes and building a platform that promises to lower cost for riders and drivers alike, all while reshaping urban transport from the ground up. We'll dive into their entry strategy, unpack how local e-bike assembly and IoT integration are helping them grow, and look at how policy, performance metrics, and energy infrastructure are aligning to support Kenya's green mobility future. So, how does an all-electric platform take on Uber and Bolt and win? Let's find out, and to help us do this is Kimani Ngugi, the founder of Kijani Boda. Welcome, Kimani. It is very good to have you today.
Thank you, Njenga. Good morning, and thank you for having me on the platform. My name is Kimani Ngugi, founder and CEO of Kijani Boda, an EV platform, ride-hailing platform, based right here in Nairobi, Kenya. So the goal is to leverage EVs to push adoption of electric mobility in Kenya, which aligns with Kenya's vision of being a front runner in the EV space in Africa.
All right. And indeed, Kenya is a front runner. But let's start by asking how old Kijani Boda is and the inspiration behind its founding.
So Kijani Boda is 3 years old. We started in 2022. We've been building the app. So to push out the MVP means we have to refine the process over and over to make sure that we put out a good product to the users, who are primarily, of course, the riders and the passengers. So we saw the opportunity when one of the players exited the market in 2020. So, and to set ourselves apart, we decided to go electric, which, of course, works well for our bottom line. It makes sense to go that direction because maintaining EVs is much cheaper compared to ICE. Their ICE counterparts, and of course, powering them is also cheaper. So for the bottom line, for the business, it's very good for us.
It's an interesting approach that I have seen, that you have an incentive for new drivers where they get 30 days commission free.
Right.
How is this working so far?
Oh, the reception has been great. So the drivers we've been in contact with have been very, very excited, because the fact that now we are separating the ICE riders from the EV riders makes them feel like now they are part of a community that has a common goal, right? So being like an electric community means that they have an app where they can call home, right? So it's been very exciting, of course, for us as well as a business, and for them, and to see that kind of reception means that we are actually onto something.
So, Kimani, we are looking at your entry strategy into the market, where Uber and Bolt have established themselves as the dominant players. And apart from the incentives that you're giving the new riders, what else are you targeting to make sure that you manage to get this business? Because we know that you're competing with the big boys and they have the money to splash around, cut prices to zero if need be.
No, so I get what you're saying. So our strategy really is to push this as a homegrown app, which it is, right? So This is made in Kenya for Kenyans and by Kenyans. So having something of our own means that we are not going anywhere, no matter what happens, right? These big players can exit at any moment because they are not really a Kenyan company. They are just here to do business. So if they wake up tomorrow and said, you know what, the Kenyan market's not working for us, they just leave. But we are here to stay because we care for our country. We want to build jobs here. We want to pay taxes here. So building these as a product for our home and indeed for the region, because we plan to expand, means that we are invested here. So this is a product for us, by us. And we are here in the long run. So that's one of our major marketing strategy.
All right. That it is an African solution by Africans for Africa.
Yes.
Well, for Kenya, basically, but then these guys are expanding. He says they are expanding. And so how does your platform leverage the availability of e-bikes to lower the cost of transport for Kenyan riders and drivers? And this is bearing in mind that the Kenyan consumer is very price sensitive.
I'm sure you know that EVs are cheaper to maintain, cheaper to power, which means now our pricing has to be lower when we factor that in. So now we are looking, as a ride-hailing app, we have to look on both ends. One, the riders. So we make sure that our commissions are low, which means now that they end up making more money. And for the passengers, our pricing is very competitive. Actually, I think 20% lower than the other players in the market. So as far as pricing is concerned, I think we have locked that in.
All right. So it's all on the customer saving more. And in your case, the customer is the rider and the driver.
Yes, we have two customers.
All right. Now, as an all-electric transport service provider, how are you working directly with e-bike manufacturers and local assemblers to integrate this low-cost e-bikes solution into your fleet? And how does that influence your unit economics compared to your competitors, Uber and Bolt?
Great question. So right now, there are 4 major players in the EV space who are manufacturing locally, and that's a good thing. So the first entrant was Rome. We have Arkride, Ampersand from Rwanda, and what's the other one? Spiro, right? And they have all set up manufacturing bases here in Kenya, which means access is available locally. And that means that even maintenance is not a hassle for our drivers, right? So partnering with these guys means that we don't have to go through all that process of importing EV bikes. So currently we are working on a contract with one of the manufacturers to have our riders acquire these bikes on our pay-as-you-earn model, which means now we'll have an exclusivity with our drivers on our ride-hailing platform.
I've heard of many pay-as-you-earn, pay-as-you-earn and go, plans, and in this sector, because we also look at the buyer power in Kenya. And most of these people who are involved in ride hailing are people whose economies are limited in terms of like the finances. And so this partnership could be something that earns you the business and makes it an attractive feature or optional offering for the riders. And also, for the consumers, because the more bikes we have which are electric, the better.
Yes, the better it is for us as well.
Yes. All right. Now, what are the specific features or performance benchmarks from e-bikes that you look at when you're recruiting these guys or when you're partnering with the assembler that you just mentioned? And how does this help your vehicle selection and service design?
So the first thing we have to look at is range. Range is very important because these guys are in business. So they need to run for as long as possible without having to charge again. But the second thing is the network that the manufacturer has for battery swapping infrastructure, right? So that means that the guys we partner with, if they have enough battery swapping stations, that means that there's continuity in business. So we have to factor that in. And for example, I'll bring up one of the manufacturers, Arkride. They have a fantastic network in Nairobi of battery swap stations. So we are looking into a partnership with those guys because that makes a lot of sense. Ampersand too. They have networks across the city and they are building more. So that's something we are looking at keenly.
Okay. All right. And I think like when you talk about range, I know because I have been able to sample a number of these bikes or speak with people who are producing these bikes. Like Kiri EV, for instance, their bikes can do 160 because they can accommodate 2 batteries. Then we have the bikes that can have 1 battery, which is like 80 kilometer range. And what is the kind of like range that a rider, how many kilometers does a rider do in Nairobi in their Uber Bolt Kijani Boda rides?
The average driver covers 240 kilometers in a day. So that means they have to swap their batteries 3 times a day. So the range is 80 kilometers for fully charged battery. So again, having battery swap stations available in the city makes business so much easier.
Yeah. Because they don't have to wait to charge.
Right.
Just swapping and then your way again. All right. Because all these things are integrated. Yes. How are you handling integration of IoT and telematics in the e-bikes to ensure safety for the riders and for the drivers themselves? And then in terms of tracking the bikes and also in terms of fleet optimization on your platform?
So I can't speak on IoT and telematics. From my end as a ride-hailing app, what I can say is we have tracking through GPS for our riders during the trip. So basically we do this for safety purposes, right? And of course, recording the trip, present the details later to both the driver and the customer. So that is a requirement, by the way, by the Officer of the Data Protection Commissioner in Kenya. So that has to be in place. But primarily, we do that for safety of the driver and the passenger.
Okay. All right. And then this ties in with the rising interest in clean energy transport. And I know you've mentioned the Office of the Data Protector or Protection in Kenya. But how are you aligning your platform with Kenya's EV policies or partnerships with government and other private power providers?
Right. So Kenya's policy on EV is about being a leader in EV adoption on the continent. So having a ride-hailing app which primarily focuses on electric mobility means we are aligned with this vision. So we see a space where adoption will pick up over time, because what we are doing is proving that the business works. So the driver gets to make more compared to the guy operating the ice bike, right? So the long-term goal is to drive adoption of EV bikes, which and it's also a climate play. But apart from being a climate play, I mean, it's good for the economy, and it's going to create sustainable and long-term jobs.
Okay. All right. And then when we talk about challenges, by the way, regulatory or logistical challenges that you face, what are these when it comes to recruiting e-bikes for commercial ride-hailing use?
So on the regulation front, we are dealing with the National Transport and Safety Authority in Kenya, which we call the NTSA. So the first challenge we faced when getting into the space was applying for a license. It's called a Transport Network Operator license. So you can imagine for a startup like us, forking out 100,000 Kenya shillings right out of the gate was quite a stretch, right? So, but I mean, for the bigger players like Uber and Bolt, that's just pocket change. But we are not complaining, because we understand the need to have regulation, because it protects the ecosystem, the drivers, the passengers, and of course, people like us providing a software platform. So the other challenge we've had in this space is convincing those guys who are using ice bikes to cross over, primarily because of the cost of acquiring an EV bike. Now, I'm sure you know that an ice bike is much cheaper than an EV bike. But we are grateful, because there are players in the asset financing space, like what's the name of this company? There's Mkoba. They are financing. There's 4G Capital, who we are currently having a conversation with. So these guys will drive adoption, because now they are more or less is friendlier to the drivers. Because people get to put around a 20% deposit, then they make weekly payments, and then over maybe a year to 2 years, they get to fully own their bike.
Okay. All right. So that's also another kind of incentive for your riders, that we organize that you get this bike from this manufacturer, assembler. So you will be paying us over time. And once you have paid the initial cost of the bike, it becomes yours, and then you're free to go. All right. That's an interesting one as well, because what we have seen is that sometimes we are getting drivers, even for cars, who are paying these daily rates for the vehicles that they are leasing, but they will never get to own them, you know? So, yeah, so it is interesting to see this happening with your company, Kijani Boda. And how does your reliance on e-bikes allow you to build a defensive advantage over traditional players like Uber and Bolt, who primarily use internal combustion engine bikes?
So it all boils down to the cost, right? The cost of maintenance for the bikes, which is way, way low, I think, by 50%, right? And of course, powering the e-bikes is cheaper. So long term, going electric makes a lot of business sense, right? So And we are seeing gradual adoption over time. So right now, we have like almost 4,500 electric motorcycles live in the market, and this number is growing. There was a report that projects that by 2040 we'll have 11 million electric motorbikes in sub-Saharan Africa. So, and this again goes back to the unit economics, profitability. At the end of the day, the driver wants to have more money in their pocket, right? So this is going to be a win-win for the driver, the passenger, because now the pricing has to match, and of course for us as a ride-hailing platform.
All right. So guys, there you have it. You've heard that Kijani Boda is incentivizing bike riders to shift from ICE engine bikes to electric bikes. And then there are other incentives, like they don't get to pay commissions for the first month for the new drivers. So all the money they make goes to them. And then when it comes to acquiring a bike for somebody who has never owned a bike and they do not have all the money upfront to pay for a bike, then Kijani Boda organizes with a bike manufacturer assembler for these guys to own this bike. And once they have paid off the cost of the bike, it becomes theirs. And it is being done in a way that is sustainable because everybody gets to make some money every day. Kijani Boda makes the money, some of the money takes some of that money, the bike owners take some of that, and then the bike rider or the driver also makes some money from that. And all of it towards the end is that the bike rider will get to own the bike, even though they got that bike on what we usually call hire purchase, right?
Right.
And do they need to do like a deposit?
Yes, there's a 20% deposit they have to put down, but we are looking at how we can partner with said drivers to offset some of the deposit if someone does not meet the threshold required for the deposit.
All right. Thank you so much, Kimani. It's been very interesting having this conversation. It's been a while, more than 6 months waiting.
Thank you for having me, Njenga.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. And guys, that brings us to the end of this electrifying conversation. No pun intended. We've heard today how Kenya's transport future might look very different from its past, thanks to bold local innovations, strategic partnerships with e-bike manufacturers, and a deep understanding of local mobility economics. From rethinking e-bike selection to leveraging IoT and telematics for real-time tracking and optimization, it's clear that Kijani Boda isn't just building an app, it's reimagining mobility itself. And with Kenya's evolving EV policies and a growing appetite for sustainable transport, the timing couldn't be better. A big thank you again to Kimani, our guest, for sharing the insights into how technology, local assembly, and policy alignment are converging to challenge the ride-hailing giants on home turf. If you're as excited about clean, affordable, and tech-powered transport as we are, stay tuned for more conversations at the intersection of innovation and e-mobility action in the Global South. Until next time, I am Njenga, and this has been the Africa EV Show.